Venezuela denounces the seizure of a second vessel loaded with Venezuelan oil in the Caribbean Sea carried out by the United States as part of its escalating imperial aggressions in the region. In Honduras, the electoral crisis has worsened after two members of the electoral body suspended the plenary session scheduled for Saturday. And in the Palestinian General Federation of Trade Unions reported financial losses exceeding $9 billion, an unprecedented unemployment rates since the October 2023 due to the Israeli offensive. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Venezuela denounces the seizure of a second vessel loaded with Venezuelan oil in the Caribbean Sea carried out by the United States as part of its escalating imperial aggressions in the region. The Venezuelan government has denounced that this military assault carried out by U.S. forces constitutes an act of international piracy, which will continue to be reported before all existing international bodies, reiterating that the state will defend with absolute determination Venezuela's sovereignty, its natural resources, and its national dignity. Amid these aggressions, the Venezuelan people have taken to the streets en masse to reject any foreign claim over natural resources and to support the principle of sovereignty over the country's strategic wealth. This crime occurs days after Washington arbitrarily announced a criminal blockade aimed at limiting Venezuela's capacity to trade, and it forms part of a series of imperialist aggressions that seek to undermine Venezuela's right to peace. Precisely. Through an official communique, the Venezuelan government categorically denounces and rejects the theft and hijacking of a new private vessel carrying Venezuelan oil, as well as the forced disappearance of its crew committed by military personnel of the United States of America in international waters. In this regard, Caracas denounced this serious act of piracy constitutes a flagrant violation of the crime provided for in the 1988 Convention for the Suppression of Unlawful acts against the safety of maritime navigation, as well as gross violation of the Charter of the United Nations, the Geneva Convention on the High Seas, and the Declaration on Principles of International Law concerning friendly relations and cooperation among states, among other applicable norms of international law. In the statement, Venezuela condemned the colonialist model that the United States government seeks to impose through these types of practices will fail and be defeated by the Venezuelan people. Venezuela in this context will continue to move forward with its economic growth based on its 14 engines and the development of its hydrocarbon industry in an independent and sovereign manner. In its closing remarks, the Bolivarian government assured that these acts will not go unpunished, vowing to take all appropriate action, including reporting them to the United Nations Security Council, other multilateral organizations, and the governments of the world, and also assuring that international law will prevail and those responsible for these serious acts that will answer to justice for history and for their criminal conduct. And expressions of solidarity with Venezuela in response to this new action of piracy by the U.S. government have poured in. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel took to his social networks to denounce the theft, assuring that the new act of piracy and maritime terrorism in Caribbean waters by U.S. forces is a serious violation of international law and deserves total global condemnation, stressing that these threats to regional peace must be stopped. And in this regional scenario, the leader of and also coordinator of the Brazilian landless rural workers movement, MST, João Pedro Estedile, warned of the imperialist objectives the U.S. government chases with its escalating aggressions against Venezuela. On a recent interview, the MST leader assured that Washington has revived the Monroe Doctrine and designed a strategy to the continent, assuring that for 60 years the U.S. government has been suffocating the Cuban people and has been trying to suffocate the Bolivarian process in Venezuela with the clear objectives of maintaining servile governments in Latin America and controlling its natural resources. In this regard, Stedile highlighted how, despite all of this, Venezuela did not give in. There is a strong alliance between the organized people, the government, and the Bolivarian armed forces as triad that govern, and proved strong enough to resist constant imperialist attacks. The Brazilian activist went on to condemn how the most recent tactic is institutionalized piracy, with the U.S. government stealing Venezuelan oil tankers, calling it a disgrace done under the nose of the United Nations, which did absolutely nothing. In this context, Estedile stressed that the fight against drug trafficking in the Caribbean is the new lie that the U.S. government is creating to steal oil, and underscore that it is the duty of all democratic sectors in Latin America to defend the Venezuelan people from these attacks and to contain Mr. Trump. More in this scenario, Venezuelan Foreign Minister Iván Gil informed on Saturday he received a phone call from his Iranian counterpart, Abbas Araghchi. Through his social media accounts, the Venezuelan diplomat stated, "We reviewed the state of our bilateral relations within the framework of our strategic agreement." He added, "We also analyzed recent events in the Caribbean, especially the threats, acts of piracy by the United States, and the theft of ships loaded with Venezuelan oil." In addition, he described and assured that Venezuela had received a full display of solidarity from the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran, as well as its offer of cooperation in all areas to confront the piracy and international terrorism that the United States seeks to impose through military force in violation of the United Nations Charter and international law. And now we have a short break coming up. But first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. We go to Honduras, where the electoral crisis has worsened in recent hours after two members of the electoral body suspended the plenary session scheduled for this Saturday. Councillor Marlon Ochoa reported that Ana Paula Hall, president of the National Electoral Council, and Cosette Lopez unilaterally suspended the plenary session of the body scheduled for 7 p.m. local time without any explanation. Furthermore, the European Union Electoral Mission denounced an intentional paralysis of the vote counting process, while the verification boards of the Libre Party and the Liberal Party raised alarms about the threats from military personnel preventing them from carrying out their duties. In this regard, Councillor Marlon Ochoa has called the process as the dirtiest in the country's history.
De las 2,792
of the 2792 polling stations that present inconsistencies in the records. There are 691 that could be corrected within the database without being submitted to special scrutiny. And well, what is becoming evident is that they want to send us the number of polling stations that have to be sent for special scrutiny for having failed to comply with the validation rules in the TREP.
La cantidad de juntas receptoras de votos que tienen que ser remitidas a escrutinio especial.
Here we are only talking about 2792 voting boards out of the 19,167 boards that, as I have previously stated, must be counted vote by vote.
Juntas que, tal como lo he expresado anteriormente, deben ser contadas.
My position, which I have made public on several occasions, is that in order to verify the sovereign will of the people, the plenary session of the National Electoral Council must refer the 19,167 polling stations to special scrutiny.
A escrutinio especial las 19,167 juntas.
This is the least transparent and most dishonest election in
La
history.
elección menos transparente y más sucia de la historia.
And in other news, we go to Argentina, where supporters of former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner gathered outside the Buenos Aires hospital where she recently had a medical procedure. Fernández de Kirchner, who is currently serving jail time under house arrest, was transferred with judicial authorization to the Otamendi hospital on Saturday after complaining of abdominal pain. Health authorities at the institution reported she underwent laparoscopic surgery, which confirmed the diagnosis of appendicitis with localized peritonitis, adding that she was recovering without post-operative complications. In this context, hundreds of Peronist leaders and militants traveled to the site, setting up a vigil to support the former president as she goes through the recovery process.
She's my global leader, she's my president, she's the president of the Justicialist Party, and she's the president I hope will be in office in 2027. She's the only one with the ability to get us out of the mess we're in, the one this unacceptable person Milei put us in, who does not represent me in the slightest, neither he nor any of his people, and who makes me feel ashamed on a global level.
I came mainly because I believe, and this is how I read the situation, that I cannot live in a country that exists only for a few, a country that works for a small group inside and leaves the majority outside. And I believe that Cristina represents and gives concrete form to a model and a doctrinal renewal of Peronism for a country that includes everyone, a country that grows with social inclusion, and that moves forward through the progress of each individual.
In Cuba, the 27th edition of the International Crafts Fair, FIAR 2025, came to a close in Havana on Sunday. Organized by the Cuban Cultural Property Fund, the event welcomed 151 national exhibitors and creators from Cuba and several countries like Colombia, India, Mexico, and Venezuela, who reaffirmed their commitment to the crafts sector through their work. Since December 6th, Cubans have enjoyed a varied cultural program featuring design and fashion shows, proposals that fuse tradition and modernity, and the return of the theoretical event under the theme Craftsmanship, Cultural Heritage and Sustainable Development. This edition paid tribute to the natural resources and talent of creators from the Cuban province of Matanzas, reaffirming the commitment to promoting and marketing the craft sector. And we go to Colombia, an ice sculpture exhibit that retells the story of Jesus' birth at sub-zero temperatures opened in the capital, Bogota. Artists sculpted a nativity scene from 20 tons of ice to mark Christmas celebrations in the South American nation. The work, which took a month to complete, is displayed inside a refrigerated container kept at -12 degrees Celsius. According to its organizers, the initiative aims to let visitors experience the cold temperatures of the night in Bethlehem. Also in the United Kingdom, thousands gathered at the Stonehenge to celebrate the winter solstice at the world's famous prehistoric monument located in Wiltshire, England. At sunrise at 8:09 a.m. local time, celebrations included dancing, chanting and touching the ancient stones to connect to Mother Earth after the longest night of the year. There were less than 8 hours of daylight on Saturday, but the days now get longer until the summer solstice on June 21st. Let's highlight the Stonehenge is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, building stages over 1,500 years, serving as a burial ground, also as a temple, and also a monument to Neolithic culture. And now we have a second show break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final show break, we'll be right back. Welcome back to From the South. The Italian National Institute of Health recorded at least 817,000 new cases of acute respiratory infections in the first weeks of December. According to the institute, the number of people infected with respiratory illnesses in 2025 reached 4.9 million. Among these, at least 42 cases per 1,000 patients were between the ages of 0 and 4. The institute highlighted that from December 8th to the 14th, cases of acute respiratory infections represented approximately 15 infections per 1,000 patients, this figure being higher than the 12.7 reported in the previous week. In other news, the Russian Economic Union consolidates its status as one of the self-sufficient centers of the emerging multipolar world. Addressing a meeting of the Supreme Russian Economic Council, Russian President Vladimir Putin highlighted the expansion of mutual trade and the deepening of cooperation among the organization's members. According to the president, all this brings real benefits to each of the member states and benefits the quality of life and well-being of the people and generally helps ensure economic stability and sustainability of the 5 countries. Furthermore, he affirmed that Moscow is interested in intensifying joint efforts to strengthen the comprehensive development of relations within the bloc. Let's talk about Palestine. The General Federation of Trade Unions reported financial losses exceeding $9 billion and unprecedented unemployment rates due to the Israeli blockades, closures and raids since October of 2023. In an official statement, the trade union underscored that more than 500,000 Palestinians have lost their livelihoods in the West Bank and Gaza, warning that unemployment rates have risen to extreme levels exceeding 50% in the occupied territories and 84% in the coastal enclave amid the massive destruction of businesses, agriculture, construction and services. Moreover, the union denounced the Israeli actions violate international labor conventions and the Geneva Conventions, as well as of people's natural right to work and to a dignified life. And staff from the Committee to Protect Journalists condemned the organization's silence regarding the genocide perpetrated by Israel against the Gaza Strip. Members of the organization denounced the committee's leadership for controlling investigations related to the Gaza Strip, blocking work that revealed Israel's criminal actions against journalists. They explained that the organization refers to the genocide of 71,000 Palestinians as what some groups consider genocide, thus minimizing Israel's war crimes. Employees asserted that the organization attempts to avoid any criticisms of the Zionist regime in Israel in order to loosen the support of pro-Israeli donors. Also in Palestine on Sunday, at least 3 people lost their lives and 2 are still missing after a house collapsed in the Sheikh Radwan neighborhood of Gaza City. According to medical sources, the collapse was caused by structural damage resulting from ongoing Israeli shelling, which caused the building to crumble on its residents. Dozens of homes have collapsed recently due to direct damage from continuous shelling on Gaza since October 2023, a situation which has worsened with recent severe weather weather, resulting in casualties, injuries, and significant material losses. In this context, Gazans refused to leave their damaged homes, citing the weather conditions and the growing hardships caused by the ongoing airstrikes and severe weather, which have affected thousands of homes across the Gaza Strip. Also in Palestine, Catholic leader Cardinal Pier Baptista Pizzaballa presided over Christmas Mass in Gaza alongside families displaced by the Israeli aggression. This way, hundreds of displaced Palestinians gathered on Sunday at the Holy Family Church, Gaza's only Catholic parish. The compound, which has been targeted by Israeli attacks in the past, serves as a refuge for both Christian and Muslim families who lost their homes during the Israeli genocide. The parish priest has said holiday activities were underway despite ongoing challenges including displacement, soaring food prices and intermittent electricity. As the official ceasefire enters its third month, amid several reported violations, attendees are celebrating the holiday with hopes of reconstruction and lasting peace. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also, join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.